My name is Alina Moore, and on the night I turned 31, I learned something small can split you open forever. Birthdays are supposed to soften you. They're meant to feel like proof you mattered for another year. I woke up that morning with my phone already in my hand, the way I always do on days that are supposed to mean something. I wasn't expecting balloons or paragraphs, just acknowledgement, a name, a heart emoji, anything that said, "We see you." There was nothing. Not from my mom, not from my sisters, not from the family group chat that never shuts up when someone else sneezes. I told myself it was early. My mother sleeps late. My older sister forgets dates, unless they're hers. I brushed my teeth, made coffee, packed lunches for my kids, and tried to pretend the quiet didn't feel personal. By 10 a.m., the excuses were already thin. At 11, my phone buzzed. The family chat lit up, not for me, but for my younger sister's announcement that she'd finally booked a couple's getaway. My mom responded instantly. "So proud of you, sweetheart. Deserve it so much." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering, waiting for the follow-up. There wasn't one. Around noon, I sent a message I typed and erased 3 times. "Hey Mom, just checking. Are we doing anything tonight?" She replied an hour later. "Busy tonight. We'll celebrate later this week." No happy birthday. No apology. Just later. The word my family used when they wanted me to disappear politely. I didn't answer. I spent the afternoon moving through the house quietly, like I didn't want to startle my own disappointment. My kids were excited for the cupcakes I'd promised after dinner. I smiled when they asked if Grandma was coming. I said, "Not tonight," and didn't explain why my voice sounded strange. By evening, I had convinced myself that this was fine, that adults don't need fuss, that birthdays don't mean what they used to, that I was being dramatic. Then it was 7:46 p.m. I was folding laundry on the couch when my phone vibrated again. Instagram notification. My mom had posted a story. I almost didn't open it. I don't know why I did. Maybe some stupid part of me still expected redemption. The screen filled with faces. A group selfie taken under warm restaurant lights, the kind that make everyone look softer, happier. My parents. My 3 sisters. Their partners. Even my aunt, who lives 2 hours away and never has the energy to visit me. They were all there. At a long table. Wine glasses raised. Plates half eaten. Smiling like nothing in the world was missing. Except me. I sat completely still, like if I moved, the moment would shatter and reveal it wasn't real. But it was. My mother's arm was extended, phone angled just right. She looked proud. Content. The caption loaded underneath. "Nothing beats being together." I felt it then, sharp and undeniable. This wasn't an accident. I clicked through the next slide. A video of laughter. Someone clinking a glass. My sister leaning into my mom, cheek to cheek. I could hear their voices, layered and loud, the sound of people who never had to wonder if they belonged. My birthday dinner. Just without me. I checked the time again, stupidly, like the clock might argue back. 7:52 p.m. My birthday night. I was at home in leggings with laundry on my lap while my family toasted togetherness. My hands started shaking. I zoomed in, noticing details my brain wouldn't let go of. A small cake in the center of the table. Not a birthday cake. Something elegant and round with gold writing. I couldn't read it clearly, but I knew it wasn't for me. I exited the app without reacting. No comment. No like. No message. I sat there long enough for the house to go quiet around me. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. A payment request. From my mom. $240, dinner. We'll settle up later. Love you. I laughed once. A short, broken sound that startled my daughter in the hallway. They hadn't forgotten me. They had just decided I wasn't necessary. 4 years, I had been the helper. The one who covered the shortfalls. The one who paid for family dinners. And just this once emergencies. I'd sent money without being asked. I'd pay with smiles and silence. But sitting there, watching that photo burn into my chest, something shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. It was quiet. I typed a response slowly. "Hope you all had a nice night. I won't be sending the money. Also, I won't be covering group expenses anymore. I need some space." I hit send before I could overthink it. My phone went silent. Outside, the night pressed against the windows. Inside, my kids laughed over cupcakes I'd baked myself. And for the first time all day, I felt something other than hurt. I felt the beginning of a line being drawn. I just didn't know yet how violently my family would try to erase it. The silence after I sent that message felt unnatural, like the air before a storm. My family chat was never quiet. Someone was always oversharing, complaining, asking for something. But that night, nothing. No typing bubbles. No reactions. No angry follow-ups. I should have known better than to mistake quiet for respect. I put my phone face down and focused on my kids. We lit a candle in the middle of the kitchen table, just one, because that's what I had. My son insisted on singing loudly and off-key. My daughter laughed, so hard she snorted. I made a wish I didn't say out loud. I wished to stop hurting over people who had already decided I was optional. By the time the kids were asleep, my chest felt tight in that familiar way, like I'd swallowed something sharp and it was stuck there. I washed dishes slowly, letting the warm water ground me. I told myself I'd done the right thing, that setting a boundary didn't make me cruel. At 11:18 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A text from my mom. "Why are you being like this?" No question mark of concern, just accusation. I didn't answer. Another text followed almost immediately. "We didn't think you'd want to come. You're always tired. We were trying to give you a break." I stared at the words, heat rising in my face. They hadn't asked. They had decided, and somehow it was still my fault. I typed erased, typed again, then deleted the whole thing and put my phone away. I went to bed with a headache and a hollow feeling behind my ribs. The next morning, the storm arrived. I woke up to 23 notifications. Missed calls. Messages from numbers I hadn't heard from in months. My aunt. A cousin. Even my dad, who usually stayed out of conflict like it was contagious. The first voicemail I listened to was from my older sister. "Seriously, Alina? Mom's been crying all night. It was just dinner. You didn't have to make it a thing. Make it a thing." I scrolled through the family chat. Overnight, the narrative had already been rewritten. "Mom, I feel sick over this. I never meant to hurt anyone. Sister number 2, you know how sensitive Alina gets. Dad, let's all calm down." Sensitive. That word had followed me my whole life. It was how they dismissed pain they didn't want to deal with. Then I opened Instagram again, against my better judgment. My mom had posted another photo. Same restaurant. Different angle. This one zoomed in on the table, the food, the cake I'd seen the night before. The caption read, "Family dinners fill my heart." The comments were already pouring in. "So sweet. You're so lucky to have everyone together. Beautiful family red heart." I wasn't tagged. I wasn't mentioned. It was like I didn't exist. Something inside me snapped, not explosively, but cleanly, like a thread pulled too tight. By noon, my sister called. The youngest one. The one who always pretended to be neutral. "You really embarrassed Mom," she said, skipping any greeting. "People are asking questions." I laughed then. A bitter sound. "About what?" "About why you weren't there," she replied. "You didn't have to ignore the payment request." That was dramatic. Dramatic. I picture the selfie again. The smiles. The caption. The timing. "I wasn't invited," I said quietly. There was a pause. Too long. "Well, Mom thought it would be awkward," she finally said. "You know, with money being tight for everyone." My hands clenched around the phone. "Tight," I repeated. "At a downtown restaurant with champagne." She sighed. "You're overthinking this." That was it. The sentence that always ended the conversation. The one that told me my reality would never matter more than their comfort. I hung up without saying goodbye. An hour later, a new Venmo request came through. This one from my older sister. $180. Mom's upset. Just help smooth things over. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I declined it. Almost immediately, my phone rang again. This time it was my dad. "Sweetheart," he said gently, like he was approaching a wild animal. "Your mom didn't mean to hurt you. But you need to understand, she's under a lot of stress." "And I'm not." I asked. Silence. "We're just asking you to be the bigger person," he continued. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. The bigger person. The phrase that meant swallow it. Pay for it, move on. "I already have been," I said. "For years." He didn't respond. That afternoon, I went for a walk alone. I left my phone at home. The air was crisp, the sky painfully blue. I watched other people pass by, laughing, talking, existing without this constant ache of being tolerated instead of loved. By the time I came back, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. My birthday night hadn't been an oversight. It had been a test. And the moment I failed to play my part, the punishment began. What I didn't know yet was how far my family was willing to go to teach me my place. The first knock came just after sunrise. Not the polite kind. Not the hesitant tap of someone who hopes you're awake. This was sharp, impatient, 3 heavy thuds that rattled the doorframe and sent my heart straight into my throat. I didn't have to look through the peephole to know who it was. My mother had always knocked like this, as if doors were formalities, not boundaries. I slipped out of bed and pulled on a sweater, every step toward the front door, tightening something in my chest. Behind me, the house was quiet. My kids were still asleep, curled in the soft safety of morning. I opened the door. My mom stood there with her arms crossed, lips pressed thin, sunglasses perched on her head like armor. My dad lingered a step behind her, eyes fixed somewhere over my shoulder, anywhere but my face. "We need to talk," my mother said, already stepping inside. I didn't move fast enough to stop her. She walked straight past me, into my living room, scanning it like an inspection. Her gaze flicked over the toys, the folded laundry, the framed school photos on the wall. Judgment sat comfortably on her shoulders. "Mom," I said carefully, "this isn't a good time." She ignored me. My dad followed her in, closing the door behind him with a soft click that felt far too final. "You embarrassed me," my mother said, finally turning to face me. "Do you have any idea how that looked?" I took a breath. I wasn't invited. Her mouth tightened. "That's not the point." Of course it wasn't. She walked into the kitchen, pulled out a chair, and sat down like she planned to stay a while. My dad leaned against the counter, silent, arms folded. "You've been acting strange," my mom continued. "Distant. Cold. I don't recognize you." I laughed under my breath. "You mean I didn't send money?" Her eyes flashed. "There it is. Always about money with you." The irony almost made me dizzy. "I just wanted you to understand how hurt I was," I said. "It was my birthday." She scoffed. "Adults don't need birthday parties, Alina. You have children. This isn't about you anymore." Something inside me bristled. Then why did everyone else get to be there? She stood up abruptly, chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Because they know how to be grateful." Before I could respond, she reached into one of my cabinets and pulled out a plate. My favorite one, white ceramic with blue flowers around the edge. She dropped it. It shattered across the tile, the sound loud and violent in the quiet house. I froze. At first, I thought it had slipped from her hands. An accident. But then she reached for another plate. "Mom," I said, my voice sharp now. "Stop." She didn't look at me. She dropped it too. Then another. Ceramic exploded around her feet, shards skittering across the floor like sharp little truths I'd been stepping around my whole life. My dad didn't move, didn't say a word. He just watched. My heart hammered. I thought of my kids upstairs, sleeping through the sound of things breaking, of a version of their grandmother I'd worked so hard to soften for them. "Get out," I said quietly. She turned to me then, eyes blazing. "You don't get to talk to me like that in your own house after everything I've done for you." My hands were shaking. I pulled my phone from my pocket. "If you don't leave right now," I said, each word deliberate, "I'm calling the police." For a moment, time held its breath. My mother stared at me, truly seeing me for the first time. Not the obedient daughter, not the fixer, not the wallet, but someone unfamiliar. Someone she couldn't control. My dad cleared his throat. "Miriam," he murmured. She scoffed, tossed the last plate onto the counter instead of the floor, and turned toward the door. "This isn't over," she said. They left without another word. The silence afterward was deafening. I locked the door, slid down against it, and pressed my forehead to my knees. My hands trembled as the adrenaline drained out of me. I stayed there for a long moment, listening to the quiet return to the house. Then I stood up and cleaned. I swept up the shards slowly, methodically, careful not to cut myself. I took pictures of the broken plates, the scuffed floor, the sharp evidence of what had just happened. I didn't know why. I just knew I needed proof. By the time my kids came downstairs, the kitchen looked normal again. Too normal. I smiled and made breakfast like nothing had happened. But my phone didn't stop buzzing. Messages poured in by noon. From my aunt, your mother is devastated. From my cousin, you shouldn't have threatened her. From my sister, she was just emotional. You pushed her. No one asked what she'd broken. No one asked if I was okay. By the afternoon, my mom had posted again on Facebook. A vague status. No names. No details. Some people forget where they come from. Heartbroken. The comments filled quickly. Support. Sympathy. Concern. I realized then what she was doing. She wasn't reacting. She was controlling the story. And I was already losing it. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, one truth settled heavily in my chest. The dinner, the post, the shattered plates, it was all part of the same message. I was allowed to exist in my family only as long as I stayed useful. And now that I'd said no, they were determined to remind me of the cost. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard ceramic breaking, felt the echo of my mother's voice insisting she'd done nothing wrong. By morning, exhaustion had settled into my bones like damp cold. My phone was already lit up when I reached for it. 17 missed calls, dozens of texts, a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I listened to that one first. "Alina, sweetheart," a woman said softly. "This is Aunt Denise. Your mother is very worried. She says you screamed at her and threatened to have her arrested. I don't know what's going on, but I hope you'll calm down and apologize. This is getting out of hand." I stared at the wall while the message replayed in my head. So that was the version traveling now. By 9 a.m., the family chat was alive again, buzzing with concern that somehow never included me. "Mom, I don't feel safe anymore. Sister number 1, this has gone too far. Sister number 3, we're all worried about the kids." The kids. My stomach dropped. I typed a response, then deleted it. There was no sentence that would survive this group intact. Anything I said would be twisted, trimmed, and returned sharper. Instead, I opened my notes app and started writing down times. Dates, screenshots, photos of the broken plates, my boundary message, the Venmo requests. I didn't know exactly what I was preparing for, but some instinct told me this wasn't just emotional anymore. Around 11, my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't family. "Ms. Moore," a woman asked. Her voice was professional, careful. "This is the front office at your daughter's school. We received a call this morning from someone claiming to be a close family member. She requested information about your children and expressed concern about their home environment." My knees went weak. "I'm sorry, what?" I said. "She identified herself as your mother," the woman continued. "We didn't release anything, but we wanted to inform you." The room felt suddenly too small. "Thank you," I managed. "She doesn't have permission. Please note that." "Already done," she said gently. "If anything else happens, we'll call you." When I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, my hands flat against the wood, breathing through the rush of fear. This wasn't about dinner anymore. This was about control. At noon, I made a mistake. I opened Facebook. My sister had posted a long status, paragraphs of emotional language about family fractures, about being abandoned, about how hard it was to feel unsupported when you were just trying to survive. She didn't name me, but she didn't have to. Everyone knew. The comments flooded in. "You're so strong. Family can be cruel. I can't believe people turn their backs like that." I scrolled, numb, past comment after comment that painted me as the villain without ever mentioning the years I'd quietly held things together. An hour later, there was a knock at the door. 2 uniformed officers stood on my porch. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Ma'am," one of them said kindly, "we received a report of a disturbance at this address." I stepped aside, letting them see the living room. Clean, calm, my kids coloring quietly at the table. No broken plates. No chaos. "There hasn't been any disturbance," I said evenly. The officers exchanged a look. One nodded. "That's what it seems. Sometimes these calls are exaggerated." Exaggerated. After they left, I locked the door and slid the deadbolt into place, my hands shaking harder than I wanted to admit. By evening, the situation escalated again. Daniel came home and stopped short in the driveway. I saw his shoulders tense through the window. "What's wrong?" I asked when he came inside. He didn't answer right away. He handed me his phone, already open to the camera. "My car." A long, deliberate scratch carved into the driver's side door. "His car, one tire slashed clean through." "This isn't random," he said quietly. I nodded. I already knew. That night, an email landed in my inbox. Family-wide. My mother's words dripped with concern and false sorrow. We're deeply worried about Alina's emotional state. She's been unpredictable and hostile. We're afraid for the children. We're just trying to help. I felt something heavy settle in my chest. Not panic, not anger. Recognition. She wasn't reacting anymore. She was building a case. Daniel wrapped an arm around me as I stared at the screen. You don't deserve this, he said. Before I could respond, another notification appeared. A message from a woman I hadn't spoken to in years. A distant family friend. Hey, I probably shouldn't say this, but your mom's been telling people for months that you're unstable. That she's worried you'll snap. I thought you should know. I closed my eyes. Months. This wasn't about one dinner or one birthday. This was the consequence of stepping out of a role I was never supposed to leave. Later that night, my friend Melissa called. I'm sending you something, she said without preamble. A video followed. A screen recording. My sisters on a private story laughing. Filters on their faces, voices light. She'll cave, one of them said. She always does when Mom cries, the other laughed. The video ended. I sat there in silence, phone heavy in my hand. It wasn't the cruelty that broke me. It was the certainty. They didn't think I'd stand my ground because I never had before. They were wrong. And for the first time, I stopped wondering how to fix this and started figuring out how to end it. The morning after Melissa sent the video, I woke up without that familiar knot of panic in my stomach. It surprised me. 4 days, fear had been my constant companion. Fear of what they'd do next. Fear of losing control of my own life. Fear that somehow I really was the problem. But that morning, something had shifted. The truth had settled. I wasn't unstable. I wasn't dramatic. I was inconvenient. I made coffee and opened a notebook at the kitchen table while the house was still quiet. Daniel watched me from across the room, saying nothing. He knew better than to interrupt this version of me. I started writing lists. Not emotional lists. Practical ones. Cancel shared subscriptions. Remove family members from emergency contacts. Change banking passwords. Separate savings. Document incidents. Backup security footage. Call the school. Update medical directives. Rewrite my will. Each line I wrote felt like reclaiming a square inch of my life. Daniel leaned forward. Are you sure? He asked gently. I nodded. I've never been more sure of anything. By noon, everything that connected my family to my daily life was severed. Quietly. Cleanly. No announcements. No warnings. Just boundaries reinforced with action. That afternoon, my phone rang again. My father. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, a text appeared. Your sisters are struggling. We need to talk. Need. The word made my jaw tighten. I didn't respond. 3 weeks passed before they showed up. It was a Saturday morning. The kids were on the living room floor building an elaborate Lego city, arguing softly over whose tower was taller. Daniel had stepped out to grab groceries when the knock came. 3 sharp raps. I knew immediately. I opened the door, just enough to see them. My father stood front and center. Behind him were my 2 sisters, Rachel and Megan. My mother was conspicuously absent. That told me everything. Can we talk? My dad asked. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, placing my body squarely between them and my home. Rachel's eyes filled with tears instantly. A performance I'd seen countless times. We're losing the apartment, she said, voice shaking. I don't know what we're going to do. Megan crossed her arms. Things got out of hand, she said. But we're still family. Family. The word landed hollow now. My father sighed deeply. We're all under a lot of pressure. Your mother's been devastated. Rachel sniffed loudly. Can you just help this month? Just one more time. After that, I swear we'll figure something out. I looked at her carefully. At the perfectly timed tears. At the way Megan avoided my eyes. At my father's tense jaw. Not one of them mentioned the lies. Not one of them apologized. Not one of them asked about my kids. You tried guilt, I said calmly. Then fear. Then lies. Then you sent police and tried to involve my children's school. Megan scoffed. You're exaggerating. No, I replied. I'm finally paying attention. Rachel's tears vanished as quickly as they'd come. Her face hardened. So that's it? You're just cutting us off because you've got a boyfriend now. I felt almost amused by the predictability. Daniel has nothing to do with this, I said. These are consequences. My father's voice dropped. You're being stubborn. This is petty. Petty. You watched Mom smash plates in my kitchen, I said quietly. You let her tell people I was unstable. You let her try to access my children's records. And now you're here asking for money. Silence. I saw it then. The moment my father realized the version of me he'd relied on was gone. The fixer. The peacekeeper. The wallet. I'm not paying your rent, I continued. I'm not reopening accounts. And I'm not deleting anything I posted. The truth stays. Megan's eyebrows shot up. You left that post up? Yes. Rachel's face twisted with anger. Unbelievable. You think you're better than us now. No, I said evenly. I just stopped letting you use me. My father stared at me for a long moment, searching for something familiar. He didn't find it. I reached for the doorknob. This conversation is over. Megan tried one last time. Mom's been crying nonstop. She says you won't even talk to her. I paused, hand on the door. She never called, I said. Not once. Their faces stiffened. I went inside and locked the door. The click echoed through the house like punctuation. When Daniel came home, one look at my face told him everything. They came, he said. I nodded. It's done. We sat together on the couch while the kids played nearby, the weight of finality settling around us. Not heavy, solid. Later that evening, Melissa called. The family confronted your mom, she said quietly. They asked why things escalated. She didn't deny any of it. She just said she didn't expect you to stop. I smiled faintly. Neither did I. But I had. And for the first time, the future didn't feel frightening. It felt quiet, and quiet felt like freedom. The days that followed were strange in their calmness. No calls demanding money. No guilt-laden voicemails. No desperate, manufactured crises. Just quiet. Real quiet. I started noticing the little things I'd missed for years, the way sunlight hit the kitchen in the morning, the way my daughter's laughter rang through the living room without me flinching, the softness in my son's voice when he asked for another story at bedtime. Life wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. My home felt like a place where I mattered, not just a stopgap for everyone else's chaos. I updated my security systems, backed up everything I thought could be used against me, and double-checked all the boundaries I'd put in place. Daniel helped. Together, we made sure my children were protected, our finances separated, our lives ours alone. Every action reminded me I had control. I had the power to protect what mattered. Not revenge, not confrontation, just protection. One evening, as the sun dipped low, I sat in the backyard with the kids, building towers out of blocks. Daniel brought coffee, and we sat quietly, sipping and watching them laugh. My phone buzzed with a message from Melissa. They didn't lose you, she wrote. They lost access to you. You're finally free. I stared at the message, letting it sink in. 3 weeks ago, I had been anxious, tired, and questioning myself. Now I felt clarity, strength, and unexpectedly, joy. A notification popped up again on my phone. Facebook. My mother had posted once more. But this time it wasn't a subtle jab, a cry for sympathy, or a vague warning. It was a picture of a table with empty chairs and a caption I didn't even read. Because it didn't matter. It never would again. For the first time, I felt my boundaries were unbreakable. My children were safe. My home was mine. And most importantly, I was no longer the version of me my family had expected. I didn't have to apologize for existing outside their control, nor explain why I wouldn't continue to finance their lives or validate their narratives. I had rewritten my life on my own terms. Weeks turned into months. Birthdays came and went. Daniel and I celebrated quietly, meaningfully, with our children. No staged selfies, no grand displays for social media approval. Just us. Just life. And it felt full. Authentic. Entirely mine. Occasionally, I would see updates from my family online. Photos, celebrations, posts that once would have cut deep, but now they barely registered. I felt a strange detachment, a relief I hadn't known existed. They were living in their own story, one I'd been forced out of but no longer needed to inhabit. The anger that had bubbled for weeks was gone, replaced with a steady awareness. I was safe, my children were safe, and my life was finally mine to shape. One afternoon, Daniel and I were sitting in the backyard, watching the kids chase each other in the sunlight. He took my hand and said softly, "You did it. You stood up. You didn't fold. You protected them and yourself." I nodded, looking at my children laughing without fear, at my home filled with life and quiet peace. It wasn't easy, I admitted, but I finally understand. Peace isn't given. It's claimed. And in that moment, I realized something even more important. I hadn't lost my family in the conventional sense. They had lost the ability to hurt me, to manipulate me, to dictate the terms of my life. That was their loss, not mine. I had gained clarity, self-respect, and a life that finally felt safe and real. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat in the living room with Daniel. I glanced at my phone, still quiet, and let the weight of the past week settle. The silence was comforting now. The calm was earned. And for the first time in my life, I felt entirely whole. I leaned back, exhaling fully, and whispered to no one but myself, "This is freedom. This is peace, and I will never let anyone take it from me again." The screen remained dark. My life remained mine. And for the first time, I slept without fear.